Hello, hello, good morning. Oh, no, no, no. Where was that coffee? Good morning. All right, now we're talking. My name is Catalina Herrera. I am the field CDO at Dataiku, and what that means is that I engage with multiple conversations with you, and everybody here across businesses, across industries, across teams, across problems. So I do have a couple of things to share with you, and hopefully you're going to find it useful. How is Vegas treating you? Hangover? Okay, I'm going to tell you a secret. What happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas necessarily. I know for a fact. All right, today we're going to talk about ROAI. And what that means is that we saw that pink box. We know there is an opportunity here. There is a lot to consider. There is a lot to do with this. And today I'm going to connect some dots based on what I'm seeing on the field that hopefully are going to help you to really maximize the opportunity here. Because there is an opportunity here. This is happening. This is real. So today we're going to focus on ROAI, which means everything else that is tied to how you're going to get your value back from the investments that you are doing in anything that is AI related. And when I say anything that is AI related, infrastructures, third parties, consultants, upskilling, training, tokens for generative AI, so be it. A lot of variables there. So how do we focus on how to prove that we are moving the needle? But which needle? How are we going to define which needle we're going to move together and focus on what needs to happen to really maximize this opportunity here? So I'm going to invite you to think about these main KPIs that I have right now on the screen. And I'm going to provide an example of each, just thinking about different customers that are actually hitting very good numbers with these KPIs. Cost savings, for example. A customer of ours was outsourcing the insights from data from a third party. They were paying millions of dollars for a report, for a business intelligence insight, from data insights. We got Dataiku in place, and then their domain experts, their teams, as they were able to take that in-house, saving a lot of money for this company. Another example of the KPIs, revenue growth. I have another customer that is actually very empowered by the power of data and AI, and is developing some models to sell to their customers. So they created a new product to generate revenue. Example of value. Operational efficiency. Multiple efficiencies that we see out there with these micro-automation jobs that are saving hours and hours on operations across teams, across business users. Human resources right now, for example, using AI and generative AI to actually match resumes with the actual skills, because who has time to read 10,000 resumes a day for a lot of these customers that we are having in this example? Customer satisfaction. Let's think about a customer. Unilever. They have about 400 products plus in their portfolio. You may recognize something like Ben & Jerry's ice cream, Vaseline, yeah, multiple of those. So imagine those marketing teams trying to align in the data they are consuming to maximize that customer satisfaction, but being able to do it in-house. Cross-reference the data from all of these silos, from all of these infrastructures, and being able to say something to the customer that is making this customer happy. And the increase on those KPIs is tangible. They are moving the needle, all right? So if we're going to focus on how we're going to maximize this opportunity, we will have to start from the beginning. Yes, the beginning. So quick story. 30 years ago or so, yeah, it's about 3 decades, when we started digitally transforming our processes, everything we do, the way we interact with each other, the way that we do businesses. Like, do you remember what was your life before an email? Remember that, when we were used to communicate in a completely different way? Well, here we go. Data, 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 more data. Structure, semi-structure, unstructured. And now we have also hardware. The compute power is also increasing. Do you remember how much money you paid for your first USB? What was the capacity? How much money you pay today for a USB? What is the capacity? Everybody is imagining the exponential growth on the compute? Yes, exactly. So this is serious. This is opening a phenomenal opportunity for us to really maximize that value. But it's generating all of these techniques that we as humans have been developing to try to do what we do. The way we talk to each other, natural language processing, deep learning, neural network, the way we see, vision, computer vision, everything else. I am representing AI right here, right now. And if this looks like a Latin woman with a curly hair, it's not random. And if you are wondering if I use generative AI to generate the slide, the answer is of course I did. So AI, this beautiful opportunity that brings us to the table and that for us in the enterprise is going to help us to really move the needle to really maximize that ROI. So if we think about the umbrella that AI brings to the table, we think about the different components of it. And as I mentioned, yes, different technologies. We use machine learning, supervised, unsupervised, natural language processing, computer vision, deep learning. Of course, generative AI is a piece of this puzzle as part of the umbrella that AI brings to the table for us to maximize what we can do with this data. But realistically, if we connect this to the enterprise and to the day-to-day operations that need to happen across businesses, across teams, and across questions that these domain experts are asking to this data, well, it's not that easy. We may have a couple of challenges there. Why? Again, back to 30 years ago. So we not only have more and more and more data every single day, and that is going to continue to happen, but at the same time, we have been changing our infrastructure. So what happens? We have silos of data all over the place, half of it on-prem, half of it on cloud, half of it someplace, somewhere in a shared drive, or someplace else in a desktop, even worse. And then you have to think about what is not allowing us to really maximize the opportunity generating this value when you think about the behind the scenes of these projects to be successful. So what you are seeing in the screen right now is what usually goes with these teams when they are trying to create this data outcome, call it AI, call it machine learning, call it predictive, call it a dashboard, call it a data science project, a data outcome. And then the back and forth between teams, because there is no way you're going to produce a data outcome that has not been validated by the business user. So the question, the number one question is, what is the problem that we are trying to solve? But then you know that where is the data coming from? Oh, we have 30 silos all over the place. And this data outcome doesn't communicate with this data outcome. And what my team did here as part of the data solution is not tech communicating with my other team did here as part of the data solution. Therefore, it's friction, friction, friction. And we haven't even deployed the project into production. So we have a data outcome, has been validated by an expert. You do have a solution that you believe is actually accurate. And then what? Then you have to do something with that. You have to deploy that into production. See who is going to be using that. What questions are they going to be asking? What is the interface they're going to be using? And many, many, many other questions. So how do you help these challenges? How do you improve this communication between teams and allow them to not only collaborate, but also tech communicate, meaning if I already created an asset, a data outcome, that has to be part of something bigger. We need to be able to repeat what we are doing for that other use case and for that other use case. And then you see how the hub and spoke model grows when you have a hub that is defining those guardrails, that security layer, that PII detection, that grouping perspective, who has access to what. But at the same time, what if you really empower everybody else to get as far as they can get without hitting the bottleneck that a lot of the users are hitting constantly in the field, generating frustration? Why? Because you still have to go back and forth, and you don't have this framework that is needed for you to scale. Do it once, connect the dots, do it 3 times, 5 times, 100 times. Hub, spokes. Empower your teams. Now, what needs to happen for this framework to be as smooth as possible? You have to be very aware that that infrastructure not only has been changing for the last 30 years, but also will continue to change. There is always something new that you're gonna be part of that ecosystem. So how do you remain agnostic to that? And whatever you are orchestrating it in a way that is scalable, so you can actually operationalize it, deploy it into production, empower your teams, and then allow your teams to keep learning from each other, so you can actually repeat, spoke. So you may have in your mind, well, yeah, but my company is way too big, is way too complex, we have way too many people, half of them are developers, but the other half has nothing to do with that. Well, exactly. That's the situation for everybody here. Look at this room. So how do we work together on a project? This room as is, with your skills as they are. So an example here for GE, over 50,000 people creating over 7,000 projects across business units, across teams, hitting over 1 billion annual benefits from AI data projects. Now, that's value. Why there are so many things in this slide? Because it's not easy. It was a journey. It took them years. But they actually realized the importance of that framework. The hub and spoke operational model kind of grew organically as part of their infrastructure, as part of their culture. And now they can actually repeat with another use case and reuse the assets and empower these users with a responsible hub, because now more than ever, we need to be thinking about the empowerment, but in a responsible framework. So if we have that proper framework, that's stage 1. If we do have the teams with the ability to communicate, to tech communicate, so your piece is gonna talk to my piece regardless of how you produce it or what are the skills that you have. And in addition to that, we can talk to each other, because communication is a mandatory part of this equation for this to be successful. Then what else can we do to really maximize ROAI? And this slide is going to be very important. I'm going to call it stage 0. And stage 0 are going to be the most basic questions that you can imagine, and yet not everybody is asking them in the field. So this is from me to you. If you want to start a project, and if you want to ensure that you generate value, you need to align on which is the needle that you need to move, and be very sure that you know what needs to happen for you to move that needle. So the first question is going to be, who will this project benefit? Who is the final user? How is they going to consume it? Is this a bot that is leveraging one of the LLMs? What is going on behind the scenes? How will specifically improve experience or outcomes? And how can this be measured? How this can be measured? We are talking about value. We are talking about moving the needle. So this is one of the first things that you have to align on. And then you have, why is using AI better than existing processes? Not everything is AI. Keep that in mind as well. This is very important. What is the upside if it succeeds? But what are the consequences if it fails? And I will say that now more than ever, that question is more important than any other. You have to be responsible. We have been talking about the potential bad outcomes of this. That is going to be part of that framework. That is going to be part of that responsible framework that is part of thinking about, is this data clean? Garbage in, garbage out? Are we keeping the human in the loop? Is this biased? Is this transparent enough? Do we know where it's coming from? And I can keep going. And then you have all the data that you need. Where will be the data coming from? And do we already have it? Does it exist? And when should we define this a prototype or a final product? Is this a prototype? We're going to have 3 months, version 1, and then by next year, we're going to have the final version of it, and it's going to be deployed into production. All right, so this is a very important slide, and I'm going to call it Stage 0 questions. Super basic. All right, we have been talking about generative AI and generative AI and generative AI. Perhaps you read the news with the CIO saying, I don't know about the value of generative AI. Well, in this study, McKinsey is calling a $4.4 trillion in potential value for generative AI use cases. What I will say is that I do see the value. I do see the teams making very good use of it. The black bars are representing the value for traditional AI and machine learning and analytics use cases, and the color bars are representing the potential additional value for AI. So there is an opportunity here. It's very tangible, and I do see it every day in the field. I do see very important metrics that are actually maximizing that value. For example, Standard Chartered, $18 billion multinational bank that had a very realistic problem. What happened after COVID? We changed the way we work. We changed the way we go to places, physicality. So there were a lot of empty places that nobody was using. And they saw that as an opportunity to review all of this data and to actually find a way to balance the number of branches that they had, the people that they had to work on those branches, and still maintain the customer satisfaction. Okay? So $34 million there. See how each of these use cases fits beautifully within the main boxes that we show at the beginning in terms of KPIs. Cost savings, revenue growth, customer satisfaction, operational efficiency. So the value is there. This has a lot of potential. What I'm showing right now is the total economic impact, a study that Dataiku released a few months ago after interviewing many of our customers and doing some financial analysis. And I'm going to focus on the first 2 bars. The first one is increase using productivity, and it's tied to a value. So what this is saying is there is a lot of efficiency out there that can be accomplished, a lot of micro-automation jobs that are happening in the field. And then the second bar is, well, maybe it's time for us to reduce a little bit of that TCO, or total cost of ownership, and perhaps clean our older stack and reduce some of these toolings that are not hitting the mark when we know what hitting the mark is, which is we need that framework for our teams to keep collaborating, talking to each other, communicate, and be as agnostic as we can be. So to go, 2 things need to happen for you to be successful maximizing ROAI. In one hand, you need to have the proper framework to empower your teams, regardless of the skill level. They need to be able to talk to each other. They need to be able to reuse assets, and they need to be agnostic to the infrastructure changes that you're going to keep coming. And the second one is you have to start with the stage 0 questions. The who, the what, the when. Define the needle that you're going to move, and then move it. Maximize the opportunity. Thank you very much.